All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Village of Monee's Planning and Zoning meeting of November 16th, 2022. Oh yeah, pledge first, okay. All right, let's stand for our pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Bettenhausen. Here. Brophy.
Here.
Culp. Linner.
Here.
Lindstrom.
Here.
Trevino.
Here.
West.
Here. Thank you. I need a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting of October 19th, 2022.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, roll call, please.
Brophy.
Yes.
Culp.
Yes.
Linner.
Yes.
Lindstrom.
Yes.
Trevino.
Yes.
West.
Yes.
Bettenhausen.
Yes. Okay, open to the public. I would just like to remind everyone that the Iroquois matter that we're going to be discussing tonight, this is not the hearing for that already took place at a previous meeting. So if anyone has anything to say in that regard, we just ask that you make it kind of quick and to the point. So, we can keep in mind that Iroquois and is going to come up and discuss this as well. And we just want to kind of keep it to the point tonight. So is there anyone that wanted to speak during the open to the public? Yeah, if you want to step up to the microphone, introduce yourself.
Please use the microphone too.
Yes, please.
Acoustics in there are kind of bad.
Okay.
The microphone's right there in front. The green light is down. That means you're live.
And when you don't want me to talk, you turn off the microphone.
Yeah, that would work too.
Okay. I wasn't aware of the meeting in August for a simple fact. I am the only farm that is south of Monee that's currently working and active on Watson's Road and Egyptian Trail. So it was a new property that was acquired north of me by the town recently through the Bonomas. So I don't know if you're asking right to the point, but I have issues with the Iroquois opening and doing other things, since I am a conservative and a conservationist that is currently going to pasture for cattle and organic farming. And we're an LLC with Loose Farms in Monee, Illinois. And we are open to agritourism because we had to reinvent ourselves as farmers. So what I'm getting at is that with Iroquois dropping this on us, and I'm not an adjoining property, but I am one of the results of smelling and dealing with this odor all the time when people come. I can't prove anything wrong through all the economical, but also with the pollutants that are in the air. They say it's just steam, but twice a year I wax my vehicles and wash them. And other neighbors didn't show up today, unfortunately. There is some kind of awful thing on our windshields and our cars that we have to bring them in and actually get removal put on them with tar and grease and wax removal. Count it that maybe it was just us, people underneath trees with sap and everything, but when you're in an open cornfield and farmland, I don't think so. So what I'm getting at is that we're going to be putting our property into pasture, and I'm going with the NRCS and the USDA with Jamie Newton at the County Extension Office in New Lenox. And I'm totally on board. We just constructed and erected our first greenhouse within almost the town limits. The only other one that's standing that's close by is Gorman Farms. So we're going to be dealing with actually a co-op and opening up a farmer's market in the south suburban side. So we're making an impact. So what I'm getting at also is that is this any good for our animals and organic plants that are being grown and dealt with because of this issue? When they first came in, they said it was just steam and air coming out of that pipe. But now, they work all wee hours of the night, depending on the contracts they have. We have to listen to tailgates banging, Jake brakes going off constantly. I'm a retired Teamster truck driver. I have never, ever seen so many trucks coming in and out of Iroquois that are illegal, mud flaps missing, ball tires, and it's just, you wouldn't trust your family even near this truck if you had to deal with it. But it's on our public roadways. So I was not part of August meeting because I was unaware of this. And I don't know how I can get more plugged into it. I had other neighbors that told me about tonight. So here I am trying to get to the point about this and some of these issues. And if they're going to be doing this now, up top of everything they're doing, that's going to be really hard on us. And as us being farmers, that's tough because you're seeing less and less farmland in our area that's shrinking. And without us, there wouldn't be none of you. So unfortunately, as you see all the prices that are going up, it's because, not because of us, it's because of all the other things that we have to deal with. So with that infrastructure set in mind, I am totally against this. And I hope the board has some leniency of listening to me and realizing where I'm coming from on this point. And even if some kind of study has to be done about these pollutants and dust and these airborne things that are coming in our area, I don't think that it would be good for us to have our South Suburban Co-op farm stands and our community from other people participating from Beecher, Peatone, Monee, Crete, maybe as far as Mantino coming to our area and congregating for vegetables and all these organic foods and needs, and then they have to deal with this. As far as I know, it could be a grain of salt, but if Monee plans on purchasing, well, they did purchase the land north of us, but if they're going to open up a water park or do anything like that, you think people are going to park their cars and dealing with your swimming pools and everything else with all these contaminants in the air? I don't think so. I don't think we need any more of this in our area as far as the trucking and the plants and the warehousing already. But I think we should keep it at what we're at right now. And that's it. Thank you.
Would you mind letting us know your name, and then are you in the village or are you in township?
I'm unincorporated, and my border, if you go on my property, I'm unincorporated. If I walk right across the property, I'm on Monee. So I'm Watson's Cutoff and Egyptian Trail at that intersection on the east side, and I'm south of the Walker's Grove, and also that property was newly acquired. I bought up to that property. And my name is Daniel, and it's Klotz, K-L-O-T-Z.
Okay.
And we're at Loose Farms, and it's an LLC.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, how long have you been there?
We've been there for about 36, 37 years.
Okay, and anyone else?
Well, I'm Greg Larson. I own the property at 6050 Industrial Drive, right across the street from this proposed facility. And as you might already guess, I'm adamantly opposed to this zoning change. Mr. Lynch was gracious enough to invite me to tour their facility. Unfortunately, on that day, there was no concrete crushing occurring. However, on the day before, another individual and myself drove by Industrial Drive, and there was a plume of dust emanating from the back of their property where the concrete crushers were. When I asked Mr. Lynch what that was about, he said he didn't know if that was coming from the concrete crusher or from a truck dumping concrete. When I came to Monee, when I brought my business to Monee, I did my homework and I specifically looked for M1 zoning. I wanted to have businesses like mine, which is what we have in the area. If I wanted M2 zoning, I could have gone to a place like Thornton, where they live in a perpetual dust bowl. 150 trucks coming into this facility a day with concrete to be crushed is really times two, because they got to come in and then they go out. Do we really want 150 trucks going through town spewing dust? And believe me, it will be spewing dust. All you have to do is look at the village of Thornton. 18-wheelers coming in and out through our village. There's absolutely no benefit to Monee that I can see from a concrete crushing facility. It's going to impact property values, and I would ask any one of you here to tell me if you think property values would not be affected by this facility. The decision that you make tonight is going to live with us for years. So in another year, if people are calling up complaining about dust and trucks and noise, it's too late. There's not going to be anything we can do then. And what I don't understand is why we have M1 zoning and somebody else wants to come in and, so to speak, change the rules. Change it to M2 zoning just so that they can crush concrete. I do not understand why that would even be a question. So I ask you to vote no on the rezoning of that area. Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, how long have you been in the area at your location?
16 years.
16 years?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
you bet.
And one thing I like to say too, you talk about trucks. It seems like trucks are gonna be a part of Monee, period. I mean, there's gonna be warehouses coming in, you've got mobile coming in and out of there. Look at how many trucks coming in and out of mobile. A lot. They have a lot of truck traffic. So what's gonna stop the next company coming in that's gonna have trucks? Trucks are gonna be part of this town.
Yeah, these are not illegal trucks.
I agree with you,
If
Ron.
they are illegal, then yeah, that's an issue.
I agree with you, Ron, but the trucks coming in and out of Mobile are not spewing concrete dust. They're clean. I haven't seen any of them leaking oil either.
And there are a lot of night drivers that go through Mobile, not daytime. There's a lot of night movers.
Well,
I'm familiar because my company that I work for deals with them, and they do a lot of evening and night routines.
Well, I actually know the owners of the Lauren Butchmeyer, which is the property right there. And I've been on his property in the evening. He doesn't get that much at nighttime over there. During the day now, yeah, there's a lot of truck traffic coming in and out of there.
And the weekends dies down.
And the weekends it dies down, exactly. And at night it does die down. Yeah, you get some, but it's nothing like it is during the day.
well, another question I have, when people are driving along I-57 and they see all these beautiful commercial buildings that are already in place, Monee looks like a professional village. Now when people drive up 57, they're going to say, well, wait, we're getting close to Monee. There's Mount Monee, that big pile of concrete. What is the upside? I don't see an upside. Can anyone tell me that this is a good move for the village? I don't see it.
Let me try to answer that, if I can, or at least propose an answer. One of the big things that's obvious is the economy, yeah? The interest rates, the inflation rates, the uncertainty of the economy. All right, let me just give you some numbers that involve asphalt and recycling and everything else. This comes from the U.S. Department of Transportation, Office of Public Affairs, and the name of the paper is the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law Will Deliver for Illinois. And what it says, the need for action in Illinois is clear. And recently released state-level data demonstrates that the bipartisan infrastructure law will deliver for Illinois. And this is what it will deliver. Based on formula funding alone. That's money that's already there. That's money that, hey, has to be paid. based on formula funding alone, Illinois would expect to receive approximately $11.2 billion over 5 years in federal highway formula funding for highway and bridges. In the world of paving, this hasn't happened in 100 years, right? So it's a windfall. If we're going to say, listen, you can't come and try to get some of that, that will not only hurt the company and all its shareholders, but also hurt the town of Monee, because that's money that it won't see in trucks that need gas, that pay taxes for highways and everything else. So the big elephant in the room right now, is the economy. We can say, okay, I want to build a futuristic, high-tech office facility, and I'm going to build it in the middle of inflationary times when almost half of the downtown offices are empty. The commuter trains are half empty. Commuter parking lots are half empty. There's empty office space and technical space all over Cook and Will County that won't be getting used because of the way the economy is.
It's not because of the economy, it's because of COVID. Everybody's working from home. It's a new generation of everything.
Well, that could very well be, but interest rates are going through the roof. Anybody who was here looking for money in 1980 will remember interest rates at 17%, 15%. You couldn't fund a home unless you took out a balloon mortgage for 18%. And right now, this is just a little shallow little pool compared to how it is. So you're asking Monee to say, well, we're going to put our chips on what might happen 5 years down the line when the economy gets better. And right now, these people are coming in, and they're seeing approximately $2.4 billion available per year for the next 5 years. And someone's going to say, well, sorry, we're not going to let you have a piece of that.
That's
I'd like to make a point too, Mr. Larson, and I do sympathize with everybody in this. I really do. That's why this has been such a hard decision. And one thing, being very fair to Iroquois also, is the reason they've got that Diamond Award. This is not ever going to be Thornton. You cannot compare them to Thornton. That's not fair. Because Thornton is a dust bowl, and it always has been. And that's a quarry situation over there. So to compare them to Thornton, I mean, that's just not fair, Mr. Larson. And I do get it, you're going to get some dust, but the road that's gravel right now probably creates more dust than anything over there. And that's going to be fixed up. I mean, look at the trees that they planted over there. You've been through that property. That's not Thornton over there. I mean, if their trucks are bad, then that's got to be an issue that they got to take care of.
Well,
I agree with that. That's wrong, for sure, because if I see that, I'm going to say something for sure. I've never really looked at that. But now that I've heard that, that's going to be looked at more. But like I said, my point is, we can't compare them to Thornton. That's just not fair, because they have been a good company. That's the reason they've got those awards. You don't just get awards. I've been a small company. When you get an award, it's usually for a good reason. And that's the reason they got that. And they can't be penalized for being good.
Well, nobody's penalizing them.
Well, they would be.
We're just requesting that they don't start crushing more concrete. If they're crushing concrete where they are right now, why do they need another facility?
That's better than penalizing us as
Why should we be
as
penalized?
landowners that have been there for decades.
Is there
We're punished.
anybody here that doesn't think that this is going to affect property values? Please?
I live in Walker's Grove. Property values have skyrocketed over the last 2 years. We live right there. None of it's bothered anybody. I've heard a couple of people talk about the complaint of smell of asphalt, but it hasn't affected property values. Monee's at
So
a
you
good...
don't think our property values will be affected?
I don't believe that. Monee is hot right now. This town is
So-
hot because of where we're at. Everybody would love to have property in this town right now.
So if you approve this zoning change, what's next? A scrap yard, maybe a junk yard?
Well, that's kind of being extreme with that. No, we would never allow that. That's not going to, remember, they've been there to begin with. They've been there to begin with. When they bought that land to begin with, they purchased that from Mozilla to begin with. That was all going on to begin with. This isn't really nothing new.
So you
And the
don't,
fact that they're gonna, I haven't talked to John about all of this, but I believe that they're gonna make those piles shorter, and I'm sure he's gonna say something tonight about that, push everything back.
and what happens if the piles don't become shorter, they get higher? Are you gonna come over and tell them?
That's why we have code enforcement, and that's why this town is getting very strict on code
Well, I
enforcement.
question the code enforcement because they proceeded to level the land, they obtained a demolition permit, they proceeded to level the land, bring in grindings, bring in a mountain of concrete without any permits whatsoever. They got a demo permit, that was it. And there still is no silt fence there. Basic tenet for EPA during any construction is to put a silt fence up. That's not there. So what makes you think they're gonna comply in the future?
Let me ask you one thing, that's all I gotta say. Have you done?
Sir, with all due respect, this gentleman is, you have
That's all
your
I gotta
opportunity, otherwise we can go back and forth,
I
back and
know,
forth.
but all I gotta ask,
I understand, sir,
have you
but
done an
just-
environmental impact study on
sir,
all
give
these
Mr.
pools
Larson
out
the
here?
opportunity to
That's
talk.
all I gotta say.
Otherwise, we're going back and forth, and that's wrong.
So, to get to Oscar's point about the economic impact, so you feel that this facility, crushing concrete, is going to result in economic benefits to the village?
If they make money, sir, we make money.
Yes, I believe they will.
I mean, if they go broke, we lose that money.
Asphalt's not going nowhere. Warehouses can, well, especially with the economy going bad right now.
They're empty.
Warehouses could go empty in a second. Where's asphalt going?
How would you feel if we told you that you could no longer pursue making a living, making money for your shareholders? Because we are not going to
You
zone
couldn't
the
do that
property so
because
that you can
can't
use
do
it.
that because I did my homework before I came to Monee. Monee actually invited me to come here. We could have gone elsewhere. We came here because we could obtain the M1 zoning area. We had light businesses in the area. Nobody's going to come up to us and tell us we can't make money.
But sir, with all due respect, they were there 4 years before you got there.
They weren't in the area where they're wanting to
Okay,
put a
but-
concrete crusher.
geez,
They
I
don't
mean-
have the proper zoning.
It's not like they were going to build a fishing pond there. I mean, obvious sense would say this is a paving
Well, it's
company,
going to
and
impede
if they're
any-
good, they're going to get big.
I'm pretty sure it's going to impede any further development of quality development. Yeah, maybe a scrapyard, maybe something else, but nobody's going to put any buildings in where there's concrete dust flying everywhere.
You know, I've got over 25 years in iron and steel and coke and coal, and I've seen piles of just about everything. And it's the same argument everywhere you go. But for the record, these guys are regulated by the EPA, they got industry standards. These guys can't make 1 pound of pavement or crush 1 pound of rock without the federal government having a standard, without the state of Illinois having a standard for them how to do it, and how to conduct their business. They're regulated 3 or 4 times more than the average company is.
Well, the facility in Markham gets that same sort of...
We're not in Markham, so with all due respect, Ron just covered that. I don't think you compare Markham to what you have in Monee.
We don't have a concrete crushing facility there on a large scale
You
at the
know,
present.
you just can't compare the
It's going to be a
two.
big mistake, one that cannot be overturned. I appreciate your time.
Thank you,
No,
Mr.
thank you so
Larson.
much for your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Larson.
Thank you.
I'm Mark Mustard. I am Mr. Larson's neighbor in the industrial park to the north. And I'm opposed to the change of zoning or approval of any kind of concrete crushing facility. I've been in that section of the industrial park for probably close to 20 years. I was the first one back there, and it used to be a dead end, and now the road goes through, thanks to the village. We appreciate that. And the village has been talking about improving the roadway for 12 or 15 years, and that's supposed to come into fruition next year, and that'll be great. You're right, it'll clean things up. But we're gonna go from cleaning things up to, like Mr. Larson said, piles, mountains of concrete. Have you folks been back there to see the mountain of concrete? Please tell me you have. You have?
Yes, yes.
Has everybody been back there?
I've been back there.
It's hideous. It's hideous. When Dan spoke, about farming, it just dawned on me that that's what this community began as, an agricultural farm town. And now it's kind of borderline between suburbs and all-out farming. And that could change too, but what a thing to have concrete dust on your vegetables or what. It doesn't add up. I have been part of the community out by farther south from Dan on Laurel Lane. I live on 5640 Laurel Lane. And that area was known by the old timers in the town as the Woods, which to me, that didn't really mean anything. But there's a book that's out. This book I got when I moved into town almost 35 years ago by Betty Wolf gave me this. She was the real estate agent that was part of my real estate deal with the house. And this is a really interesting book if you want to learn some of the history of Monee. It talks about the elevation of Monee. The elevation of Monee is only second in the state of Illinois to Galena. So we have like the high ground in the whole state compared to anybody else, which in this day and age might not mean that much, but it still does. It's important to, everything flows downhill, let's face it. So we've got the high ground. I'm part of the Historical Society, and you can get this book at the Historical Society. It's not a commercial,
$35.
but anyway,
COD.
we can learn a lot from the Historical Society. It's
The
really
interesting
excellent.
part,
Yeah.
this is a very high area, but that is exactly why Illinois Central decided to cut through it.
Right.
That's
Well,
exactly why
No, that's why the cut is there.
the city of New Orleans train goes through it twice a day, going and coming,
It's not
because of
why.
its geographical position.
It's the reason for the cut, is because the ground is
That's
so
right.
high that the locomotives
Absolutely
couldn't
right.
make it. That's in the book. It talks about that. It talks, so anyway, I've been living on Laurel Lane for almost 35 years. I can't believe it. I purchased the place when I was in my 20s. But since then, I've owned buildings in town, and I've rehabbed the buildings mostly myself and learned about the history of those buildings. Most people here probably haven't been here for more than 15 or 20 years, except for Miss Michelle. And she's hardly even much older than that. 30 maybe. But anyway.
Be careful.
He
doesn't get a vote.
There's just one more interesting fact that's in the book, and that is that my building that I owned on Main and Locust, which is across from the post office and the police station, was dismantled from the Chicago World's Fair of 1890. After the fair, they took buildings apart and they put it on the Illinois Central Railroad in pieces, brought it down to Monee Station, unloaded it, and pulled it to the location it is now with horse and wagon. So it's a very historic town, Monee is. My point being, let's keep it somewhat quaint, not piles of concrete, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Jim Tiernan, and I grew up in the south suburbs, actually Park Forest, and we always knew where Monee was. We came down here to eat once in a while, and we also raised our family. I was part of the family that was being raised, and we ended up moving to Flossmoor. And my mother, who happened to be Assistant Attorney General at the time, got me a job with Monee Construction. So here I am. I don't have a car, and I'm 16 years old. So I rode my bicycle from Flossmoor to Monee, and I didn't know what to expect. It was a very clean town. I went to work. I sweated. I made money. I stayed healthy. And for the next 3 years, I worked for Ken Watts. Anybody know who Ken Watts is? He had a business here, Monee Construction. It was a drywall business. When I came to Monee the next time, it was because my friend and business associate, Greg Larson, had a business here. And he asked me to come in and evaluate his company for some employee benefits. So I came in, and he said, I can't believe I saw that
the dust come out my window when you pulled up. Because they have, it's gravelly, and it stirs dust up. So we did some business, and I subsequently bought a motorcycle, and I would visit Greg on my motorcycle, and I would park it outside, and when I pulled up, I would notice that there was dust behind me. I could see it in my rearview mirror, and that was because it was a gravel road. You got to be careful. If anybody's ridden a motorcycle, you have to be careful. So I would see it in my back behind me, and it encouraged me to slow down, and I did. Well, now when I come here and I park my bike and we discuss business and maybe smoke a cigar, when I come out, my motorcycle is covered with this dust. And when I take it home, I have to wash it and be very careful because that dust is an abrasive and it will cut into the pavement. So I'm just very careful. Now, when Greg told me that there was going to be this crushing place going right next to his building, he said, "You're probably never going to ride your motorcycle here again because that dust is going to be everywhere." And I said, "Really?" I said, "Wait, don't you think about the impact on the environment and people are raising their families here?" And he said, "Well, they're concerned about money, I think, and that's what's kind of driving this." And I didn't ask any more questions, or I didn't know what to ask. He just said, "This is something that may be impacting us." So if anybody pays attention to what our country we're really concerned with is impact, environmental impact, and the health of our children. So that's something I'd just like to have you consider before you make a vote to put in a crushing facility. Thank you.
Good evening, Planning and Zoning Committee members. My name is Malik Verpnauer, and I work with Maple Tree Investments. Anson Logistics Assets, LLC, a subsidiary of Maple Tree Investments, is the owner of the Erdner Midwest Warehouse property located at 5800 West Industrial Drive. We're located between Iroquois Paving's existing plant and immediately northeast of the 15-acre property recently purchased by Iroquois Paving. First and foremost, we'd like to express our displeasure with not being notified by the village of the proposed zoning change. As a major stakeholder in this village, we should have been extended the courtesy of proper notice instead of hearing of this notice secondhand through neighboring property owners a couple of days before tonight's meeting. We're strongly opposed to the change in the zoning as well as proposed use as do not conform to other neighboring uses or add tangible value to the community or existing business residents on Industrial Drive. We're concerned with the potential negative impact that debris, dust, odor, and increased truck traffic could have on our property in a physical sense, but also to employees working in the building as well. Additionally, another concrete recycling plant operating close proximity to the property could present a challenge to retain our tenant, Exxon, a top 10 Fortune 500 company. The proposed heavy industrial use has significant potential to hinder the likelihood of companies similar to Exxon moving into the area. As we have a fiduciary duty to our investors, we'll use all necessary resources to protect our property and have a vested interest in this proposal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Board. My name is Dr. Lindley Wessels, and I'm the owner of the Animal Wellness Center of Monee, located on 5750 Industrial Drive. I'm here along with my husband and co-owner to discuss our grave concerns regarding an additional Iroquois facility on our road. You'll bear with me, I wrote some notes here. Before I opened the clinic in 2004, the administration at that time promised me the world and said Industrial Drive would be booming, including a metro station. Obviously, that didn't occur. Instead, I watched Iroquois Paving be built across from my clinic. I was not given any chance to give my opposition then regarding that business. My complaints after they were up regarding smoke and odor it fell on deaf ears, so I stopped complaining. From my position directly across from the current Iroquois Paving business, I see an unsightly, foul-smelling, loud operation with a lot of truck traffic. The noise from the plant and the trucks startles my patients when they are outside. The noise has caused several of the dogs to run away from their owners when they are startled. Some of the dogs even have to be carried in because they're too frightened. Not by me, by the noise. When new clients call, we have a saying, and it's unfortunate, but we say, turn right at the smelly smokestacks when they ask for directions. I also have concerns regarding air quality. Seeing a constant stream of smoke in the air is disconcerting for me, my staff, my clients, and my patients. And to give you a different perspective from everything we've heard prior, I also want to point out that there are federally protected wetlands to the west side of my parking lot and to the east of the proposed crushing site. These protected wetlands contain hundreds, if not thousands, of birds, including nesting hawks, and I have even seen a bald eagle. These hawks and the eagle are federally protected. When birds are exposed to airborne irritants or contaminants, they die, period. Having an additional Iroquois operation, which will produce dust close to the road, will be life-threatening to the birds. Birds that are supposed to be protected by our federal government. We know Iroquois stated that they will not have significant dust increase, but if they are incorrect, the damage is done and the catastrophic consequences to the wildlife cannot be taken back. I'm here tonight to ask this board not to allow Iroquois to operate a second location on Industrial Drive. I implore you to stop allowing Monee to be a dumping ground for unsightly, loud, and unattractive businesses that decrease the value of our neighboring properties, decrease the appeal of this beautiful town, and also harm our protected wildlife. And I thank you for your consideration and time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is George Hansel, and I currently rent a warehouse at 6050 West Industrial Drive, which is right across the street from the proposed site. I understand when you guys say that we've already had to deal with the dust, which we have had to deal with. But, you know, because you guys have done the project, started the project you did, you know, there was a finish line in sight. You know, that we were going to be dealing with this dust. You guys are going to be paving the road. The road will be finished. We will be dealing with this dust up until then. But if you allow this place to be going across the street, we have to deal with it. I'm right across the street from the proposed site. I already have dust problems from that site, even though they aren't doing anything, because there's kind of a wind thing over there. I've always noticed ever since I've been there. I've been in that warehouse for almost 3 years now. Every time it's always windy over there. So we already have problems with the dust, with the mountain of concrete that they already have piled there about dust. You know, and it's just something that we really shouldn't have to deal with. You know, to turn around and put this place in the place that it's at is, you know, is unfair to the people that rent buildings around that. You know, so I'm adamantly opposed to you guys granting them the permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, was there anyone else?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Nice to see you all again. My name is Matthew Grusecki. I'm Senior Vice President of Northern Builders. Our team is returning tonight to oppose Iroquois Paving's petition for a zoning change that would allow for this concrete recycling plant with I-57 frontage immediately next door to Northern's planned Class A business park development. Before we begin, I'd like to let you know that Tom Kenrick and I recently visited Iroquois Paving for a brief facility tour, but more importantly, to have a sit-down meeting with Joe Cohen and John Lynch. I started by saying that we sincerely wish them nothing but continued growth and success in Monee. We understand that they saw an opportunity to buy an expensive land for the recycling operation, but it's just the wrong location because it conflicts with our entitlements and the investment that we had already made. I got the sense that we understood one another. Also, Tom and I introduced a creative idea whereby Iroquois and the village of Monee might consider a land swap so that Iroquois could expand on the land immediately next door to their current facility, and perhaps Monee might consider taking their I-57 frontage property. Both sites have roughly the same net buildable area, and both sites cost between $30,000 and $40,000 of the same price. Now, certainly none of that is within Northern's control or influence, but we thought it was a creative idea that we wanted to share with them and with you. In the meantime, as Iroquois is proceeding with their petition tonight, Northern will continue to oppose this, as it would cause considerable damage to Northern's investment. I'm going to be very brief, but I did want to touch on, for people who haven't heard us speak before on this matter, just a couple bullet points about a little bit of background here. Northern has a 22-year track record in Monee, including 3 light industrial developments totaling 800,000 square feet. We've created new jobs, fully leased buildings, they're always leased, and we constructed almost a mile-long extension of Cleveland Avenue with utilities. And when the road came in under budget, Northern handed Monee a $309,000 check for the difference. We brought in under price. Northern has already invested $2.4 million for our land acquisition, due diligence, and site engineering. Prior to purchasing this land, we spent 10 months with Attorney Grishevsky and the village board to create a development plan that transformed our M2 zoning into a light industrial development consistent with I-1 zoning. This was agreeable to us as our interest was not heavy industrial, but a Class A business park development consistent with our first 3 buildings on Cleveland Avenue, all with I-57 frontage. In my previous presentation, I shared a number of concerns that the proposed use would be dirty, dusty, noisy, and unsightly, all of which will affect our ability to secure tenants and users, and will dramatically impact the value of our development. Now, rather than hear me talk and share my perspectives, I believe it's most important for you to hear from the community and those who came out this evening, as well as some experts within their respective fields. As such, you'll hear some brief comments from a land development expert with some observations on the subject property. You'll hear from an industrial broker specializing in I-57 who will share her thoughts on sales and leasing. You'll hear an expert opinion on property values and the financial impact of M2 zoning, and a legal analysis and comments from our attorney, Matthew Holmes. Before I turn this over to the next speaker, I would like to share 2 exhibits with the committee. This first exhibit is a list of all the landowners on Industrial Drive and Whiting, many of which spoke this evening and indicates their opposition to the proposed zoning change. I think it's good to hear these voices, but it's also good to see an aerial as to where these people own their businesses and how they feel about what's being proposed. The second item I'd like to pass out to you. If I may. This is a technical line of sight rendering that was prepared by Harris Architects. This is a scaled rendering of an individual standing at the west end of Industrial Drive. It shows that Iroquois' pad elevation is about 2.5 feet higher than the road elevation. And this is based on actual distances, grades, and a 36-foot building clear height in the distance. This perspective accurately reflects what a person would see from this location. And as you will see, the concrete and asphalt stockpiles are the only prominent features that you will see from this location or from I-57. Nonetheless, as you will hear these presentations, aesthetics are the least of our concern. Northern's position remains that we will not proceed with our 3-building Class A business park development if the neighboring I-57 frontage site is changed to M2 zoning that would allow for a heavy industrial outdoor use. This would also mean that Northern would no longer be in a position to participate with the Industrial Drive road improvements, the Industrial Drive sanitary lift station upgrade, or building our Parkway Road that would be dedicated to Monee and later extended to Pauling Road, or contributing land to Monee on the west side of I-57 for the village's water main project. Happy to answer any questions if there are any.
I have one question. Are you building now to suit? Are you building, would you build if all this were to, let's just say, blow away? All right? Would you be building your facility to suit customers that you already have?
Yes,
Do you have customers now waiting?
yes. Tonight you'll actually hear from our real estate broker, who has a very long list of clients, many of which who will not come here if this is their next door neighbor.
They're committed to coming here in view of the way the economy looks? Is that what you're
I'm
saying?
not talking about the economy.
You're not talking about the economy?
No, I'm talking about an industrial real estate requirement in the marketplace. I heard what you had to say earlier about the economy. While the economy has lots and lots of challenges, industrial development is red hot.
Interesting. I mean, you drive by, you see the commuter trains half empty, you see commuter parking lots half empty, you hear about people being sent home for 3 or 4 days a week.
Right, yeah, I heard you say that.
You know, I don't,
What stood out to me, you were talking about office. We're talking about distribution centers.
yeah, but your office and your business is speculation. Is that correct? You speculate on whether you can get business in, whether you can build and have customers and tenants come in.
I think
So it's a bit of a gamble, isn't it?
This is our profession, and I'm hearing, I'm not quite sure what you're getting at.
I'm
but-
hearing at this, that there are $11.4 billion out there available to the state of Illinois for the next 5 years
Yeah,
for road improvement and bridge improvement.
Uh-huh.
And any company that can come in and help Illinois out, help Illinois build these roads and,
Sure.
and build these bridges, versus someone who's saying, well, I had this grand plan, but I don't have any tenants. I don't have anybody who's committed 100% to moving in when I build it.
okay, so I'll take this in pieces. No one's going to make a commitment to come here if this is a consideration. No one wants to be next door to that. And as far as this infrastructure bill for road construction, asphalt paving, concrete, that's great. But do they have to be on I-57 frontage to do it?
Does it have to what, sir, please?
Have to be on I-57 frontage in Monee to do it?
It's going to be on I-57, obviously, because it's a good exit.
No. What I'm
You
asking
know,
is,
it's,
does that mean that because this industry has so much money to spend, is that an excuse for putting a crushing plant on an I-57 frontage site in Monee? My point is, there are other sites that Iroquois Paving can go to. Just don't go to this one. Don't go to the one that's zoned M1 per your 2021 comprehensive plan. This was just restated. And Larry, how much time do we spend together working on our development agreement?
About a year.
About a year. About a year. And it was made crystal clear. Light industrial uses, minimal trucks, beautiful buildings, just like we did on Cleveland Avenue. 3 fully leased buildings.
okay, the other question I have, the last time we talked, I asked you if you had made an attempt to purchase this property in question.
Yes.
You said that you had started a deal, but the deal fell through.
What I said, or I'll just tell you what
So
occurred.
tell us what happened.
When Sally speaks, Sally actually represented Don Wilkins on this. We were initially going to purchase all of the Wilkins property. And during our negotiations, Don Wilkins said, you know what, I'm going to keep 15 acres for myself, and you're going to build a cold storage building for me. I said, great. And when I came in here and I presented to the village board, I said, here is our master development plan. Northern is going to develop 3 buildings here, and we're going to go look for users for these buildings. And Mr. Wilkins, we're going to build him a cold storage facility. So Mr. Wilkins changed his mind. He sold his business to, I believe, his son and his nephew. And he made the land available for sale. He didn't tell us. We didn't know. I would have bought it in a heartbeat. It was $400,000.
Yeah, but you didn't know, right?
I didn't know.
You didn't pursue, you did. So the only reason you didn't buy this, I guess I want to call keystone piece of property that would have made all of your plans realistic, would have made all the plans you had to make Monee come into the 21st century a reality. But you didn't know.
We didn't know.
Didn't know.
Yeah. I would have bought it. In fact, when I met with the gentleman from Iroquois, I said, if you want to be made whole on this, I'll still buy it from you.
So what's the problem there? Iroquois say, I will buy the property from you. Your dream
No,
no longer exists.
I said I would buy it from them
Oh, okay.
so that I could develop something nice on the property. Trying to think if there's anything that's missing here. No. But, yeah, any other questions?
That's it. Me too.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ken Ninehouse with Northern Builders. I have some exhibits I'd like to pass out first. Thank you.
Thank you.
Should have stapled them together. Make it easier. Sorry, I didn't have time to staple them, and I want to make sure you get the right pages.
Not a problem. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ken Ninehouse. I'm the Vice President of Pre-Construction Services at Northern Builders. I've worked in the development and general contracting business for nearly 43 years.
My primary expertise is land feasibility studies, land due diligence, the environmental impact studies, soil borings, archaeological backgrounds, you name it. We acquire quite a bit of land, and we probably acquire 4 to 5 pieces each year that I put the teams together to do all the civil engineering or feasibility studies for our business park. So that's pretty much what I do for a living. After visiting this site, I've observed a number of things, and that's why I gave you these exhibits. We noticed that it had been cleared of brush in some old structures. But an area of about 4 acres on that site had also been graded, built up with gridings, and a significant broken concrete stockpile. Just for everyone's knowledge, any disturbance, 1 acre or larger, requires a great deal of permits. You have to, at a minimum, have a mass grading permit, a stormwater management permit, soil erosion control. You need to do your wetland studies. You need to do all of this before you just go grading on the land. I mean, that's just illegal, and it's egregious. We find on this site that none of it, there were no plans, there were no permits from Monee, State of Illinois, IEPA, that was obtained by Iroquois prior to doing this act. We can find no mass grading permit was obtained. No NOI was filed with the IEPA for the state of Illinois. No stormwater management plan was prepared. No erosion control plan was prepared for the IEPA or Monee for review. No wetland delineation plan was prepared. There are 3 wetlands on that property. What I gave you when we bought this entire property, we hired Christopher Burke to prepare the complete wetland study, and you'll see 3 of them on that property. One of them was disturbed and filled. There was no historic preservation studies done, so you'll never know. There was no endangered species done, which is common practice. It was not done. And back on the 8/17 meeting for P&Z, it was mentioned that 150 trucks per day would be working from this site, but yet there's no traffic impact studies. Also, understand the use of this is for pulverizing, crushing, grinding materials. There's been no sound studies done. It's an outdoor use with close proximity to other businesses, as well as the natural wetlands and the Monee Reservoir. Yet there's been no environmental impact studies done. I'm sharing with you those reports where you can see the aerials that's done, that was prepared by professionals. The one that's behind it, we commissioned from Burke. And it clearly shows what took place here. From the aerial, it demonstrates that wetland number 2 was disturbed and was partially filled. There's stockpiles of concrete on there, and the worst part about it is they went over that pipeline, and I'm very familiar with them. I work with Kinder Morgan, One Oak, Enbridge, all of them. You don't ever go over a pipeline, not unless you're looking for a large catastrophic incident. It takes about a year to get permission to even do that. You need to go through the process of doing borings in conjunction with the pipeline company to find out how deep the pipeline is so you don't have an incident. And that there's concrete piled on top of that today. It's unbelievable. It just is. I've never seen anything done like this in my life. And it'd be impossible to know if any of the Native American or historical artifacts are now buried. You'll never know. I've just never seen anything that was so illegal, reckless, and irresponsible. I don't know how to phrase it. Iroquois just didn't follow the law. They had no regard for the IEPA, the wetland habitat, the endangered species, Wolverine's pipeline, or this community. And they did this while trying to get permission from you for M2 zoning. Could you imagine what it would be like afterwards? Seriously, you need to think about who you're dealing with. I've not seen anything like this, and I don't know that you're aware of this. But this is fact, and this is what they've done. This is how they've treated your community, and this is how they've disrespected what's out there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you allowing me to tell my story. My name is Sally McCoys. I'm a managing director at Cushman & Wakefield. We're an international real estate services firm. And I've been an industrial real estate broker at Cushman & Wakefield for about 28 years. And I specialize in the lease and sale of industrial properties in the south suburban areas of Chicago, specifically along I-57, I-294, I-55. I've completed about 40 million square feet of transactions over the last 28 years, about $2 billion in total value. I have a team of 4 people, myself, Matt Sadler, Nick DiGregorio, and Denise Lawson, who are here tonight. We are the team that was hired by Northern Builders to market Monee Corporate Center. We have been actively pursuing food companies, corporate headquarter facilities, light manufacturing, and cold storage facilities over the last 2 years. We are so excited about Monee Corporate Center. We really do believe it is a tremendous, tremendous opportunity for the village of Monee. Our team's involvement in this site started about 2 years ago when we listed the Wilkins Food Service site along I-57. We presented it to Northern Builders, and they were interested, but they had a much grander vision. They wanted to do a land assemblage with the Aquila site to the east, the 100 acres. Cushman & Wakefield has spent a tremendous amount of time over the last 2 years. Time, money, energy, marketing this site to so many of our corporate clients across the country and local companies in the area. Why am I here? I'm here for many reasons. I have a long history with Northern Builders. I've been working with Northern Builders for over 20 years. They've earned a reputation in the market of excellence for many reasons. Their innovation, their quality construction, their creativity. They have a unbelievable list of clients in the food industry, which is what we're really trying to focus on for this particular development. Ganella Baking, Great Western Malt, which we actually put and brought into Monee. It's a corporate client of Cushman & Wakefield. Believe it or not, they're the largest producer of hops and barley in the craft beer industry. I don't like craft beer. I like vodka. I'm a Polish girl. But they're the largest in the industry, and they're in Monee. So we've had so much success, and the list goes on and on with Northern. Centrala Foods, Ganella Baking, Starbucks, Nutriad, so many food companies. So, again, why am I here? I'm here because I feel very strongly that our vision to bring marquee tenants and users and owners here is in jeopardy with this proposed change in zoning. I've been doing this for 28 years. There are so many companies that are leaving the south side of the city and South Cook County. The Cook County real estate taxes are killing businesses. We are so set up at this development to capture some of these companies with the Will County taxes and with this south suburban location. It's a phenomenal location right on I-57. But what we need is we need the consistency in zoning. We need the support of Monee. I've been doing this a long time, way too long, 28 years. My husband tells me, don't tell people you've been doing it that long, but I have. I've been doing this a very long time. And this asphalt and concrete grinding facility, I really don't believe any food companies or corporate headquarters facilities or light manufacturers would want to be located right next to that kind of a use. there's just too big of a risk with the dust getting into their products, their process lines, their people, and it's just, the perception of it is enough to scare them and their customers. They just wouldn't even consider it. To make that kind of multi-million-dollar investment at Monee Corporate Center. They could go up I-57 to many other municipalities where they're keeping the zoning the same. So the last 2 weeks, this is what I believe, but you don't have to take my word for it. The last 2 weeks, I called many of my clients and many prospects and many users that have been interested in relocating here. We spoke with Holland Companies, who's in University Park. Their broker spoke with the CFO last week. They almost moved here a year ago. They were so excited about putting a corporate headquarters facility on I-57. They're still very interested. They'd like the I-57 frontage. But we told her about this proposed use. She said, no way. There's no way I could get my board to approve that. D2000, an organic food packager and distributor that I've been working with for 20 years. I asked him, he has been so excited about relocating here. He's in Bolingbrook and Romeoville. He lives right down the street. He's always wanted to own a building, and he likes the Will County taxes. He said, I could never get it approved by my Fortune 500 companies. No way. Key Foods, a food distributor in the city of Chicago. I just sold their building today. They want out of the city. They want out of Cook County. They love the idea of Monee. I just closed on the building today, and he said, I don't think I can do it if that's the proposed use next door. Connie's Pizza, one of our best clients, wants out of Cook County because of the real estate taxes. I have an RFP right here from Connie's Pizza. They even want to put a restaurant down here. Their pizza's amazing. They want to come down here. But they said, take it off the list. We can't do this. So this is not spec development. These are companies in Cook County that are getting killed by real estate taxes. Their taxes are going up, tripling, and they want out. They're moving to Northwest Indiana. They're moving to Wisconsin. They would move here, but these food companies will not move here. I've been doing this for 28 years. There's no way they're going to locate next to this kind of facility. So, in fact, we would have never sold the land site to Northern if we thought that this proposed zoning change would happen. So that's why you have zoning ordinances and development agreements and your comprehensive plans. So to be clear, our wish is that you honor the representations that you made to Northern Builders so that the last 2 years have not been a complete waste of our time in Cushman Wakefield's. Thank you. Please reconsider this.
Good evening.
I'm Tom Kenrick. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of Northern Builders. And what I'm going to do tonight is read you a letter from Michael Tenteris, who is Executive Managing Director of Cushman & Wakefield. Michael is an expert in the sale of industrial buildings in the Midwest and Chicagoland markets. During his 17-year career, Michael has completed sales transactions exceeding 110 million square feet with an aggregate value in excess of $5 billion. What you will hear in Michael's letter is his expert opinion that the recycling and stockpiling operation will have a material adverse effect on our building's values. In dollars, Michael estimates that the negative impact to the value of our buildings will be $9 million. So I will now read you Michael's letter, and afterwards I'll hand out a copy for each of you. So the letter is addressed to me regarding proposed aggregate recycling and stockpiling operation, Monee Business Center,
Monee, Illinois. Dear Tom, this letter is in response to your question regarding the effect on property values of having an aggregate recycling and stockpiling operation immediately west of your planned development in Monee, Illinois. I will answer your question from the perspective of buyers of Class A industrial buildings in the Chicagoland market. An aggregate recycling and stockpiling operation would have a material adverse effect on the market value of your planned development. Institutional investors consider the village of Monee as a secondary industrial market, and it always requires an education to have investors look at Monee in the first place. When coupled with an aggregate recycling and stockpiling operation being next door, the top tier investors who pay the most for industrial real estate would be driven away. Consequently, we would need to engage the second tier investor pool. These second tier investors are willing to take more risk, but they'll also pay less than the top tier investors. How much less would the second tier investors pay? Take, for example, your 381,000 square foot building. I would estimate the second tier investors will pay $4 million less than the top tier investors for your building. My math assumes that the building is leased with rents of $5 per square foot. The top tier investor would pay $29 million for a 6.5% return. The second tier investor would require a 7.5% return, given the higher risk associated with the aggregate recycling and stockpile operation. This means that they would pay $25 million or $4 million less. I can walk through that math if anyone needs that done. I'll continue. The $4 million loss of value is directly attributable to the aggregate recycling and stockpiling operation being next door. And this is just for your 381,000 square foot building. You can expect similar diminished values for your planned 227,000 square foot and 249,000 square foot developments. I estimate the loss of value for those developments would be an additional $5 million. These are big numbers, and they're real numbers. This is from an expert who sells industrial buildings in the Chicagoland market, and he is very familiar with this site and with the village of Monee and what investors will do. Thank you. I'll pass out a copy of the letter.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
My name's Matt Holmes. Tonight I'm here as the attorney for Northern Builders, but primarily I'm a land use and zoning attorney that works for the firm of Storino, Romello, and Durkin. Primarily, I advise units of local government regarding land use and zoning issues. We're a municipal law firm. I'm on the faculty of a local government law institute lecturing on land use and zoning issues, and I wanted to talk to you today regarding the application for a map amendment that's been filed by Iroquois Builders. My clients today are not here waving torches and pitchforks. They're not raising red flags that don't exist. They've been nothing but erudite and honest and forthcoming. They're not screaming and calling the mayors and alerting the media. They're here today to make a reasonable argument as to why the petition for map amendment filed by Iroquois builders must necessarily be denied, applying your own standards contained in your village code. The communities I represent, and when I speak at public events, I remind local governments that in order to make a good decision, the right decision, you should always go back and look at the standards that are set forth in your own village zoning code. The petitioners requested a map amendment. That is probably the most severe zoning relief that can be requested by a petitioner or a developer in a municipality. This isn't a special use or a PUD or a variance where you have control over the entity going forward. What they've requested is a map amendment to the M2 zoning, which permanently changes the permitted uses on the site, which means that Iroquois, while they're presenting you with an option for an aggregate recycling and storage facility, the M2 zoning would permanently allow all of the M2 uses as a matter of right, which includes brick, tile, and clay products manufacture, bulk storage of fuel products, cement manufacture, chemical manufacture, concrete products, yards for the storage and sale of secondhand machinery, sewerage disposal plants, essentially every noxious use that the heavy industrial district can cough up. Now, concrete, asphalt, recycling is a bad enough use by itself, but when you factor in those other concerns, you can see how valid the concerns of the adjacent property owners are for this type of downzoning at the site. I'd like, in the interest of time, I don't want to spend your whole night doing this, but I'd like to just quickly walk through some of the standards that are contained in your zoning code to show you examples of how this particular application doesn't meet the standards for a recommendation for a map amendment. The fourth standard, I'm skipping 1 through 3, is that there are no sites for the proposed use in existing districts permitting such use. That's patently false. There are vacant M2 districts, vacant M2 properties in the village of Monee right now. Number 5, the proposed change is not contrary to the established land use pattern and the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan was brought up previously. It was amended in March of 2021. I imagine that many of you worked on the development of that and the draft of it. The land use pattern in the area and along the I-57 corridor reflects a Class A light industrial and commercial uses, not office uses, such as the one being constructed by my client, Northern Builders, and that have previously been constructed by my client, Northern Builders. If you drive up and down I-57, what you're going to see is a lot of distribution centers. And that is a fact, actually, because the office industry has gone down. There's been more shipping and more distribution to people receiving goods and products at home. It's the rise of Amazon that gave rise to distribution centers like the ones my client proposed to build. As noted in the Village Comprehensive Plan, I'm just reading from it, nearly 2.3 million square feet of industrial development occurred in Monee since 2010, which is 4.4% of the 52.5 million added countywide during the same period, meaning Monee is raking in a greater share of light industrial uses than the other competing municipalities in Will County. This suggests that Monee could be a part of an emerging industrial cluster in Will County, as the village is capturing a greater share of the county's new development than its existing inventory share. Again, this comprehensive plan was revised in 2021, and in fact, calls for this area in question to be used for light industrial uses in the future. It should be noted that your comprehensive plan has no future uses for heavy industrial use, and it appears to be the plan to phase out heavy industrial uses going into the future. The CP notes, that's their comprehensive plan, that there is significant vacant land in the area between I-57 and Governor's Highway, which is what we're talking about right now, that is recommended for light industry. The area is currently zoned for manufacturing uses. New development should address any potential negative impacts on homes to the east of Governor's Highway and on the Monee Reservoir to the south. I don't believe that any environmental impact study or either of those things has been addressed by the applicant in this case. It does not, Further, it should be noted that the I-57 corridor has been zoned M1 for a very specific reason, which is to try and prevent the type of negative aesthetic impact that will be granted by putting piles of concrete along the highway. The southern part of the eastern frontage of I-57, the first thing anyone sees of the industry of Monee will be this property. This is your entry into Monee. And quite frankly, I think that it's fairly clear from your comprehensive plan that this is not what they had in mind for that entryway. The seventh standard that is required is there have been major land use changes since the zoning regulations applied, which support the proposed amendment. Ironically, the only really land use change that has happened in the area is the development of my client's light industrial facility on an M2 property, which means that the trend in that area is actually sliding toward light industrial and away from heavy industrial, which is what was intended by the comprehensive plan. Well, number 8 is the owner of the property cannot realize an economic benefit from uses in accordance with the existing zoning. The land is viable for use as zoned. You've heard testimony that my clients would have purchased this property if it had been listed for sale. The change in the existing district boundaries would not be inconsistent with existing uses. I lost track. I believe it was 5 adjacent property owners or property owners in the vicinity objected strongly to this use on the environmental basis that would be caused by the project. All right, this one's a little bit more tricky. Number 10, the proposed change would not conflict with existing commitments or planned public improvements. This hasn't been addressed, but this property is located in TIF 5 of the village of Monee. The purpose of a TIF district is to encourage and incentivize development in the district. Property used as proposed, this property, if it's used for what it is, will have no significant structures built on it, which means that the increment created by the assessed value of the property will not generate any funds for the use of the TIF. This is not the type of use you want in a TIF district. It's in fact the opposite of the type of use you want in a TIF district. You want uses that involve the creation of structures which generate assessed value. And that is not what this is. Further, our clients, my client, Northern Builders, entered into a redevelopment agreement in which commitments were made by and between the village of Monee and my client. They're committed to building or paying for half of the roadway construction and other improvements along Industrial Drive. These improvements will now be subject to the infrastructure requirements and damage caused by 150 asphalt trucks a day. It's clearly inconsistent with the prior commitments and representations of the village with respect to development in the area. Number 11 is the change would not contribute to traffic congestion or dangerous traffic patterns. Now this one's a little tricky because no traffic study was provided despite the fact that there's going to be a large number of trucks coming in and out of the facility. It's impossible to determine whether or not these trucks would contribute to congestion or dangerous traffic patterns, but I would note that the exit at I-57 that I take when I come from the north brings me to the most direct route, takes me past approximately 15 homes. And I'm not sure if they want another 150 asphalt trucks a day going by. I know that there is a distinction between, I have no problem with trucks, but asphalt trucks tend to be the open tops for loading with sometimes a screen over the top to prevent debris from leaving the truck, sometimes not. For the same reason, I would point out that the change would not adversely influence living conditions in the vicinity due to any type of pollution. You've heard testimony from your local veterinarian and from our pre-construction manager that there are several environmental concerns raised by this project. Finally, and this is the last, I'll just leave you with this. The 14th standard in your code is that the property values in the vicinity will not be decreased by the proposed amendment. This board has heard testimony from our brokers, has heard testimony from local property owners about the devastating effect this will have on property values in the vicinity, on the marketability of property owned by my clients and by long-term business operators in the village of Monee. The obvious conclusion is that the value of my clients and those property owners' properties will be decreased by this proposed amendment in use. These are damages that they are all going to have to learn to work with or not. At the September 21st meeting, Member Lindstrom noted that somebody's not going to be happy and that somebody's going to get hurt. Trustee Henson, who I saw in the back, noted that he didn't think there was a winner either way. If this is the case, this body cannot recommend this amendment. If the property values in the vicinity would be decreased, this body shall not make a recommendation to amend the ordinance or map. And I think that that makes the decision fairly simple. Northern Builders encourages you to follow the standards set forth in your village zoning code and comprehensive plan, and to recommend denial of the requested map amendment. Thank you for your time and attention to this matter.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John Cohen, and I'm Senior Vice President of the Heyman Company. We've been in business over 60 years, and I've worked at Heyman for about 16 years. And we are an owner-operator of properties nationally. About 3 years ago, we purchased from Northern Builders 26051 Cleveland Avenue. And it's a 250,000 square foot building. Has two tenants. One tenant was actually mentioned earlier, Great Western Malting. They provide the hops and barley and all that for a lot of craft beer around the country. And believe it or not, they have a $3 million refrigerator in their facility. And they have specialized ventilation. And we are very concerned, and they're very concerned that if there's more dust produced, that it will drive up their operating costs and could, permanently damage this refrigerator. And it's a big refrigerator, and they love the location over here, being close to the exit, and but I would say, echoing what the Northern team said earlier, if there were industrial use, outdoor industrial use in front of this property, I would have never even considered buying Monee 3. I wouldn't have, just from the brochure, I would not even have come out to see it, because personally I value my job and I like my paycheck. And if I had brought my owners out here to see it, they would have just said, keep driving. And so, we are like the rest of the Northern team and the homeowners in the area, we're adamantly opposed to a concrete crushing facility in the proposed location. Thank you.
Good evening. Ken
Good evening.
Carlson on behalf of Iroquois. I guess and I will hold off if you intend to take comments from the applicant during the meeting. And if you just intend to have discussion during the meeting, I just make a couple of brief comments now. What you've just heard is the testimony of this person and the testimony of that person. What you heard tonight wasn't testimony. What you heard tonight was public comment, because the hearing was closed. That evidence was closed. You're not allowed to take evidence now. So to the extent that they wanted to bring in valuation issues, they wanted to bring in environmental issues, they wanted to bring in traffic issues, there's a point under ordinance where that is done, and that's at your hearing. Joe and John are here tonight if you have questions about the proposal based on what you heard during the hearing. But I would just ask you to consider what you heard at the hearing. I believe we have satisfied the conditions that are set forth, the findings set forth in your ordinance for a map amendment. But once again, tonight's evidence was public comment and not testimony. It was not evidence that ought to properly be considered in determining whether a map amendment ought to be granted. With that, thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, did Iroquois want to come up and give the additional information did you have additional information you wanted to share with us tonight?
We certainly can answer any questions you may have, if there have been
I
questions.
would like to ask just one question in regards to why did everything start at the other property? Why did you guys start all that without the permits? Why did that all happen if it shouldn't have? Because that's making you guys look bad now. And if you were supposed to get permits, if you were supposed to go through the procedures and none of that was done, that doesn't look good.
We have those permits in place now.
You've had done everything.
Yes,
You have it now, but you didn't do it before, right?
that is correct.
Yeah, I hope you realize that was a mistake.
How can you have the permit without the proper zoning?
Right.
You're talking about, I think we're talking about the land development permits.
Correct.
And the studies done on the environment, all of that? With all due respect, I think the answer is it was pretty easy. You had all the earth-moving equipment, all the 950s and the 990s already there. It's not a question of how it is now. Actually, you could probably put it back the way it was within a matter of 5 working days.
Yeah, we have the demolition permits to get rid
Yeah,
of the
okay,
existing residential structures on that site. And we moved the land around there accordingly. And we started the process through land surveyors, through Space Co., who did the surveying for the entire industrial drive area, to prepare our land surveying, our MPDS permits. And that's where we are.
Again, you started this process before you came to us for the zoning change. That's putting the cart before the horse. I think that this is probably the biggest problem that I see is that it's almost though you assumed that everything was going to go your way without going through the process.
I don't see the process changing from an M1 to an M2 scenario in terms of the permitting.
It's huge.
It's just too easy to pass up.
This is not something that, not one blade should have touched that ground before the zoning change was given.
Well, I don't think what you've done so far needed our decision yet, though, correct? You might have needed the permits, right? But you're
There's nothing
not,
they've done there that
I don't
requires
think
an
they're
M2
doing
zoning
M2 stuff
classification.
there yet. So I think that,
It's not true.
That's not true at all.
There's a lot of not true.
Okay.
Stockpiling of concrete is not allowed in the M1 district. Further, we filed FOIA requests for all permits that have been issued with respect to this project, and while there was a demolition permit issued, none of the other grading permits have been issued.
Excuse me, and a disturbance beyond 1 acre requires all of those permits. You must have an IEPA, you must file for an NOI, you must get the NPDS back, you must do your wetland studies, there are wetlands on that project, and worst of all, you went over a pipeline, you could have blown up a neighborhood. I mean, that is egregious to do that. I've worked with all the pipelines, and it's a year to get permission. You did everything with complete disregard.
Are you able to address the issues that he brought up at this time?
I mean, we certainly can bring our engineer if you'd like us to come back and address those issues.
A little late for that.
And address those questions. I mean, because all you are hearing right now are this is illegal, that's illegal, and I'll tell you that's unfair.
What's unfair is that you started this without seeking the change of zoning.
Well, I think the point is, for the demolition of the house, the change in zoning was not required. Should there have been a pause before a concrete stockpile was placed there? Yeah, I mean, nobody's going to stand up here and argue that fact, you're right. But the demolition of that house doesn't require a zoning change.
Drained 4 acres.
The audience needs to be orderly while they're speaking.
If we could, if we just have one answer at a time. We understand and appreciate Northern's position, but we also want to give the opportunity to Iroquois to make their rebuttal. And so we'd like to sort of move this along if at all possible.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions for Iroquois?
Any comment? You're asking for comments?
Like if you have any additional questions for
I don't
them?
have, no, nothing for them.
I have one. My question to Iroquois is, did they do anything illegally so far, as where they're at right now? Even though I am the public, you don't have to address me, but I'm asking you to.
Attorney?
And we're not here, sir, on that issue. We're trying to rezone it, okay? We're looking at testimony or public comment from both standpoints, okay? Thank you.
Make that decision.
Okay, so no one else has any?
I just got one comment to make again. We seem to be at a crossroads as to the direction we want Monee to take, you know? Do we want to push the town and move the town toward the 21st century, you know? Do we want to move it in? We've heard from the gentleman in the back that he'd like to keep it completely agrarian. You know, that's not going to happen. I can only internalize in myself why I moved to Monee, okay? 23 years ago. I moved there because it was quiet, it was green, I had space. I spent 25 years in iron steel and 20 of those years in a filthy coal mine. And I enjoyed coming home to a nice, clean, green backyard. If that's the direction Monee wants to keep going, that's a consideration, all right? If it wants to go the other direction and see themselves fit and able to take advantage of money when it comes there, and it is. Iroquois can stand to make money for the next 5 to 7 years, okay? That's the other direction. I'm just glad, very, very glad and hopeful, but I'm glad that I do not have to make the final decision. My decision will be simply in an advisory capacity, right? How I feel about it, right? As a member of the community.
Correct, and I think it's probably, that's probably the point that we're at right now, is to just decide if, you know, anybody has a.
I would make a comment.
Oh, sure.
The last 7 people we heard from in here were representatives of or for Northern. And what they described is, we're gonna kill the market, we're gonna pollute the land, and we're bad people. Yet, by their own admission, they proposed to the village a land swap where we would no longer be their western adjacent property owner, but swap with the village and take that eastern property. So all those things they have concerns about with Iroquois paving, yet they're still open to be our neighbor. I'm confused.
That's not really our concern at this point. Our concern is the change of zoning for the 10 acres that Iroquois purchased.
Thank you.
And has nothing to do with any swap of property.
I agree.
So that would come further down the line.
So what happened with the deal with the swap of property? It
I don't
was,
know anything about it.
but you guys talked,
Discussion with that's it. No, I don't.
was there a discussion
Yes,
over
there
that?
was. Yep, and that was where it was left, as far as I'm in knowledge of.
But you guys were willing to swap a piece of land to make it?
We're open to listening, is exactly what was said.
It still has a concrete crushing operation in it.
Absolutely, yes, correct. which is in existence now and has been for over 30 years on Industrial Drive.
Okay, so I guess I need a motion to make a recommend.
Can I say one
Oh,
thing?
yeah, sure,
Yeah,
absolutely, sorry.
I'm sorry. At this point in time, it appears as though the zoning board would be at the position to make a recommendation to the village board if you deem appropriate. I will add on to what council said with respect to the requirements for zoning change. This is all could be found under 1128D of the code. A couple that were not, I believe, addressed, but it should be in the record. The amendment would not be contrary to general welfare. There is no procedure available preferable to rezoning. The rest council discussed, and that the original zoning regulation for which change is being proposed would not be impeded by the proposed amended. The other ones, council did a very good job indicating what the requirements are or the standards for the zoning board to consider upon zoning recommendations. So again, you'll make, if the board deems appropriate, a recommendation will be made. Then the full board will take into account your recommendation, and that won't be until December 14th.
Okay, so can I have a favorable or unfavorable recommendation?
I'll make a favorable recommendation for Iroquois.
Okay, can I get a second?
Is there a second to the motion? No other second? Motion dies.
Okay. So is it, I've never had that
Pardon me?
before. All right, so then that means it's unfavorable, correct?
Unfavorable recommendation.
Okay.
Correct.
All right,
Thank you very much.
all right, thank you.
We, as I indicated, next board meeting is December 14th, and you're all welcome to attend. About the country. Go home. Nobody else still. Motion to adjourn.
Okay, we don't have any new business, correct? All right, so I need a motion to adjourn.
I know.
Can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
I'll make that motion.
Second, please? Thank you. All right, roll call, please.
Culp. Culp. Linner.
What's the question?
Roll call.
Yes, no.
Roll call to adjourn.
Oh, to adjourn? Yes.
Lindstrom. Lindstrom.
Roll call to adjourn.
Adjourn. Yes.
Oh, yeah, I'll make that. I'll make that.
Trevino.
Motion to adjourn?
West. Yes. Bettenhausen.
Yes.
Brophy.
Yes.
Hey.
Oh my God.